today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, an update to the current world title situation in the women's flyweight division, where initially it looked a lot like Gabriela Alaniz was going to have to satisfy her mandatory challenger in Mexico's own Kenya Enriquez. They must have gotten Kenya to step aside. They must have, because that fight was on schedule.
Now this is
Gabriela Fundora versus Gabriela Alaniz for all the marbles, all the belts in the women's flyweight division, presumably on the undercard of Floyd Escofield versus Tellez.
November 2nd.
Set to go down in Las Vegas. Gabriela Alaniz will once again be traveling to America and fighting on a Golden Boy Promotions show.
She's done that 2 times already. This will be the 3rd. The first 2 were the Marlen Esparza fights.
Now it's going to be for this fight with Gabriela Fundora, her fellow champion, and the last 2 women standing in the women's flyweight division. This is a very different assignment from that one. In Marlen Esparza, what she was facing was a well-schooled amateur and an educated boxer, but not a big puncher. Marlen Esparza, she's not big on power. She never has been. Gabby, on the other hand,
Gabby can crack.
sporting a professional record of 14 wins with no losses, no draws, 6 knockouts. To Gabriela Alaniz, who sports a professional record of 15 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 6 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 16 professional fights. They have roughly the same amount of fights, roughly, and the same level of experience when you think about it, where Gabriela Alaniz fought Marlen Esparza, Gabriela Fundora fought Areli Musinho. Both experienced fighters, experienced champions at the time that they fought them.
Now they're fighting each other.
But don't let their professional records fool you. Gabriela Alaniz may have more knockouts than Gabriela Fundora, but Gabriela Fundora is the bigger puncher. Make no mistake, Gabriela is the stronger puncher of the 2.
Punch for punch.
And the more nuanced boxer of the 2, in more ways than one. Tactically and physically, just like her older brother, Sebastian. Gabriela brings a lot of height and a lot of length to the table, and worse, she knows how to use it. She's not the kind of fighter that steps into her punches and just falls in, smothering her work. She manages the distance with the lead hand,
With the jab.
maintaining a pocket between herself and her opponent so she can continue to pour it on and drive her punches, not getting in too close, not smothering her work. She's lethal.
Now any fighter that has to fight Gabby Fundora is going to find themselves in a situation where they have to get close to her.
They don't have a choice because boxing her from the outside is not an option for a smaller fighter, and most flyweights are smaller than Gabriela. Boxing from the outside isn't an option because Gabby's got too much height and length for you to do that. If you do that, she can just pick you off long range.
You won't be able to touch her. You'll be outside of striking distance. Thus, to do anything, you have to get close to her first. Gabriela Alaniz is going to have to try to get close to her.
Gabriela Alaniz, a mid-range to inside fighter, mid-range to inside volume puncher. She's quite comfortable there. So the assignment,
It is right up her alley. Trying to get close to her opponent, that's what she normally does.
this fight is going to require Gabriela Alaniz to try to get close to Gabby Fundora, and Gabby Fundora, it's going to require her to move and punch, box, keep a bit of space between her and Gabriela Alaniz while circling away a bit, fighting off the back foot. She doesn't normally have to do that,
But she might in this fight because Gabriela Alaniz is going to charge her.
maul her. Gabriela Fundora is quite capable mid-range to inside, but due to her height and length, she's also very effective from the outside. She can mix it up and do what she needs to do to win this fight. I like Gabby Fundora to win a points decision. I don't know that she knocks out Gabriela Alaniz. Those Argentinians are tough.
Tough as a $2 steak.
I'm not ruling out a knockout. It could happen that if anybody's going to knock out Gabriela Alaniz, it would be Gabby Fundora. But conservatively, I'm going to go with Gabby to win a points decision.
Somewhat of a change of pace for Gabby Fundora. I expect that she's going to box more in this fight, move more.
And I like her on points. Don't forget that this is a Golden Boy Promotions show. And in the event of close and competitive rounds and a close and competitive fight, the house fighter is likely to get all the consideration. We already saw this when Gabriela Alaniz first fought Marlen Esparza.
We saw it then.
If the fight is tight, we'll see it again, and Gabriela is likely to win a points decision. By hook or by crook, Gabby Fundora on points is the way to go. Not saying that she has to rob Gabriela Alaniz. She can beat her legitimately.
Yeah.
But if the fight is tight, you can still expect Gabby Fundora to get all the consideration. This is the best fight to make in the women's flyweight division right now, and the winner will come one step closer to being ranked on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list.
Bitch.
You and Devin Haney never fought.
To be real, that's more on their side. I've tried 3 times already with Haney. I tried already with Haney 3 times. And the last time they were supposed to have a meeting with my promoter, Bob Arum, from Top Rank, and they never came, never showed up. But the moment that my actual first defeat that they gave me, they jobbed me. But that first defeat that they gave me, who was quick to jump right away to Kambosos, that was Devin Haney. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that y'all just don't know what the tweaks behind the scenes.
So Teofimo Lopez recently made an appearance on the Is What It Is podcast with Cameron Giles and Mason Beta. Some things he said I agreed with, but this wasn't one of them. He claims he's tried to make the Devin Haney fight 3 times.
When was this?
Said he tried to make it 3 times. There was a meeting set up and they were no-shows. But the moment they gave him a loss, who moved quick to jump at Kambosos? They did. So I'm going to assume he's talking about from before he lost to George Kambosos, the time before he lost to George. And that's what I'm wrestling with.
Why?
Well, before he lost to George, Devin was under contract to Matchroom. He was signed to Matchroom and fighting there exclusively. We know at that time Bob didn't want to do no business with Matchroom.
Remember?
Devin was Vasyl Lomachenko's WBC mandatory challenger.
To avoid having to deal with Matchroom and entering into a potential purse bid situation with Matchroom, they had Vasyl Lomachenko installed as a franchise champion, WBC franchise champion, and franchise champions ain't got mandatories. The WBC world title, the world, that went to Devin.
He was elevated to full WBC champion, and all of this was a byproduct of Top Rank not wanting to work with Matchroom. So when Teofimo says that he tried to do the fight with Devin 3 times, when was this?
It couldn't have been around that time. It couldn't have been because Bob made it known he didn't want to deal with Matchroom, so it couldn't have been then.
And you remember what Bob's plan was at that time. It was Bob's plan to put Teofimo in the ring with Loma. That was their master plan. That was what they were working towards. Devin wasn't a part of that picture. So once again, when Lopez says that he tried to make that fight with Devin 3 times, it couldn't have been then.
Could it have been after?
After he lost to George Kambosos? I'm not sure. You see, after he lost to George, he moved up to 140. Devin stayed at 135, and Devin had 3 fights. 3 before moving up.
The 2 George Kambosos fights in Australia and a Vasyl Lomachenko fight.
Now, all 3 of those fights were at Top Rank. All 3 of them. But at that time, Devin's at 135, and Teofimo's just starting to make his bones at 140. And I don't think while he was doing that, he was petitioning for a fight with Devin.
Why not?
He rebounded off the loss to George Kambosos with Campas. Goes on to stink out the joint with Sandor Martin.
Remember that?
Might have believed that around this time, this guy that just looked horrible with Sandor Martin and got dropped 2 times, he was petitioning for a fight with Devin at this time.
I don't believe him.
I don't think so. He moved on from that to fight Josh Taylor, and he looked much better, much better with Josh Taylor. So was it recent? Is he talking about a recent effort to get Devin in the ring? Once again, I'm not sure because he didn't make it clear. When supposedly did all of this happen?
Was it before the Kambosos fight? After the Kambosos fight? If it was after, how long after?
How recent? None of it really seems like an adequate excuse, though. None of it seems like reason enough to not continue to try, to not continue to pursue that fight. Because the fights he is talking about, the ones he's pursuing, like a Crawford fight, yeah, that's not likely to happen, and that don't make a ton of sense. You're still at 140. Terrence is at 154. Devin is a more reasonable option.
Devin is a free agent.
Wouldn't it make more sense to continue to pursue Devin, if you even have been pursuing him, than shouting into the camera, trying to convince people that you want to fight Terrence Crawford, which I don't believe.
Fight Devin.
So maybe you don't want Devin because to a lot of people, Devin just lost to Ryan.
But hey, you fought Josh Taylor, and to a lot of people, Josh Taylor already lost to Jack Catterall. before he fought you.
And you fought him, so fight Devin.
I don't believe they want the Devin Haney fight, being honest with you. I think underneath it all, Teofimo and his father know that for all of Devin's faults, stylistically, that's not a good fight for Teofimo. And we've had plenty of examples. The kind of guys where Teofimo can look good are guys that he doesn't have to chase. Guys that are going to come to him. But a guy like Devin, who's a little taller and a little longer, he's going to move lateral, he's going to hang back, he's going to keep you at arm's length behind his jab. It's going to be hard to get close to that guy. You're going to have to come forward. And Teofimo coming forward. Saw him in the Cambosos fight, the Sandor Martin fight, the Jermaine Ortiz fight. Coming forward and giving chase, he's not as good as he is hanging back.
Teo's not a pressure guy. And he doesn't know how to mimic a pressure guy to be effective coming forward, stepping into his punches and diversifying his offense. He's not good at that.
He needs to learn. Until he does, the Devin Haney fight, that's not a good fight for him. And I think they know that. I think they know their strengths. I think they know their weaknesses. And I think they know that for all of Devin's faults, stylistically, that could be a nightmare for Teofimo.
So they don't try hard. And they've never really tried hard to get that fight. They're not trying hard to get that fight now. But what's the excuse? Devin's a free agent. He's not otherwise preoccupied. You're not doing anything but interviews.
Make the fight.
Javante's not giving you the time of day. Terrence Crawford's at a higher weight with bigger fish to fry and better things to do. Devin's right there. He ain't busy. Neither are you.
Make the fight.
I don't understand it. What is wrong with these people? I mean, why? What could you not have loved about Saturday night? What are you not happy that someone from another country has put all of their efforts and time and money into delivering an iconic event for our country, for British sport, for opportunities for our fighters? What are you not happy about? I don't understand. Are you saying they shouldn't be here? What's the fucking most ridiculous, almost borderline racist?
Veteran boxing scribe for Boxing News Ed and Bad Left Hook, Lewis Watson responded to Eddie Hearns' comments by saying, "It's now racist to have concerns regarding sports washing and boxing. When the Saudis and Turkey get bored and pull the plug, here's hoping there is a sport left in the rubble."
What this is all about, there were some members of the boxing community complaining that the Saudi Arabian national anthem was played ahead of the Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois fight, and that it was not in keeping with the decorum for a fight that's happening on British soil, though common sense would dictate that while the fight is happening on British soil, who's paying for it?
The Saudis are paying for it.
They're not just paying for it. They're not just clandestinely paying for the show. This is part of Riyadh season.
An effort to promote tourism within the region to make it the entertainment capital, the entertainment hub for various sporting events, not just boxing. They're not hiding this. It's not sports washing.
It isn't?
It's an effort to generate different kinds of revenue outside of what they generate from fossil fuels. They want to turn the region into an entertainment hub.
I wouldn't call that sports washing.
You had Carl Froch asking, why was the Saudi Arabian national anthem played at Wembley Stadium before the Joshua Dubois fight? And what happened to Oliver Brown?
Frank Warren explained it.
And it happened because, whether you like it or not, it happened because of Riyadh season and the input and the finance that they provided. And, you know, I'm proud to have been involved in it. Absolutely proud to have been involved in it. We put the national anthem, the Saudi national anthem on for one reason only, and one reason, because it's the reason is in the title of the show, Riyadh season. Everywhere you went, that was the advertising. That's what they're paying for, to sell the Riyadh season, to sell Riyadh, to bring the world's attention to Riyadh.
Questions that have obvious answers are being asked. All it really communicates is that you have a problem. You have a problem with the Saudi Arabian national anthem being played on British soil, even though there's a very obvious reason for that. It's because the Saudis are paying for the show. So you have a problem with the show.
What? Because certain journalists were not given access to the show. They weren't in press row. They weren't given credentials to cover the event. Is that what it is?
Journalists like Oliver Brown, I heard Farrell Crotch ask that question on his own channel. Maybe those journalists shouldn't write hit pieces. Maybe those journalists shouldn't say that this is sports washing on the premise of reported human rights violations within the region.
You are aware that, depending on where you live and where you're from, you could say the exact same thing about the British Empire or the United States, that there is no perfect government. There's no government out there that is a government that doesn't have somebody's blood on their hands. So let's try to keep the politics out of there.
This is about boxing. If this is about boxing, maybe you shouldn't write hit pieces about the event's coordinators and then expect to gain access?
You prat.
Throwing your toys out of the pram because you weren't given press credentials. What did you expect? I also heard Carl say that they're depriving those journalists of their right to detail what's going on at the event, but it's not their right. It's not their right to be there. Whether it's Turkey LL Sheikh or Frank Warren or Eddie Hearn or Ben Shalom, they can so reserve the right to deny you press credentials because it's not your right to cover it. It's not your right to be there. If you want to be there,
Buy a ticket.
if you want to be there that bad. I mean, this is a common practice and an industry standard on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. The same thing happens here in America. There are plenty of people that are not given press credentials.
The promoters have their reasons, and those reasons vary from promoter to promoter, but what you're doing is tantamount to virtue signaling. That's all it is.
All I see is a bunch of crybabies and an edgelord, because that's what Carl Froch is. He's an edgelord. His whole thing is being edgy and deliberately trying to ruffle people's feathers to appear as a straight shooter, a straight talker.
Makes him seem more like a douchebag.
More than anything else. People talk about how Eddie and Frank are playing nice and sucking up to the Saudis, but one day they're gonna pull the plug, and maybe they will. But nobody said this was gonna be forever. Nothing lasts forever. So enjoy this while it lasts.
Quit your crying.
Change the diaper, sunshine, because all they're doing is making the fights that weren't otherwise being made within the sport of boxing. Get off your moral high horse.
Your soapbox, grab a pint, and enjoy the show.